Now that we've got a better idea of how queues work, let's try a little practice exercise with them. So inside of my Weave directory, I'm going to open up both the index.js file and the queue.js file. So this time around, two separate files. I'll then flip on over to my terminal and make sure I'm running my tests for this exercise. So we'll run just weave test.js -- watch. And we got about 4 tests going. All right, let's see what's going on here. So this is the first exercise where we are going to be doing two separate things, or working between two separate files. So the directions at the top of index.js tell you to first flip on over to that queue.js file and follow the directions in there. So let's go look at that first. All right, here's the queue.js file, and here's the directions that it's telling us to do. So we're supposed to implement a peek method on this queue class. Queue is supposed to return the last element. In other words, the next one that is about to be removed from the queue without actually removing it. So that's the key here. It's like remove, but we're not actually removing it. Peek is supposed to do is exactly what it says. It allows us to kind of peek at the next element that is about to come out of the queue. Okay, so that's the goal here. You will take care of this little task first, and note that there are a test or two over here that has to do with peek. So if we go over here, yeah, so here's some tests around peek so you can verify and make sure that it's working correctly. Okay, let's flip back over to the index.js file now. So that was task 1. Now we'll move on to task 2. The goal of task 2 is to implement a weave function. Weave is going to be called with 2 separate queues as arguments, and the purpose of the function is to combine them both into one brand new third queue and return it. This third queue should contain the contents alternating from the first 2 queues. So weave is very aptly named. We're going to take 2 queues and weave their contents, or alternate their contents together. Note that those 2 source queues might be of different lengths, so you need to make sure that you're not accidentally inserting undefined into that brand new queue that you are going to make. So you need to look at the elements that are coming out, or maybe peek at the next element that's going to come out and make sure that it actually exists before trying to insert it into that new queue. Now the last thing here, do not try to abuse the fact that the queue class is just wrapping an array. So do not access the array directly that's sitting inside of these queue classes. Only interact with them using the add, remove, and peek functions. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's a code example right here. And then a little bit lower is the weave function. So weave will be called with these 2 queues right here, so source 1 and source 2. And you have a require statement in here already for the queue class. So you can use this to create your own new queue, the third one, and then combine source 1 and source 2 into the new queue that you will create. Now one thing to keep in mind here, when you create a new queue, or the third one that you're going to return from this function, make sure you create the queue inside the function itself, like so. Don't create the queue outside of the function. You want to make sure you create it inside of it. Now just in case the weave directions are not entirely clear, I'll give you a quick diagram here. So in this diagram we have source queue 1 and source queue 2. Do keep in mind how queues work. They usually flow in diagrams from left to right. So the next element that's about to be ejected from source queue 1 right here would be u. So we would take this element, stick it into result, and then the other source queue 2 over here, stick that in, then we alternate back to 1, 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. And then just to be really clear, remember those 2 queues might have different lengths assigned to them. So if they do have different lengths, we want to make sure that we don't accidentally try to remove elements from an empty queue and stick it into this new one. If we try to remove an empty element from this queue right here, we will end up with undefined inside of the third queue that we create. And we definitely don't want that. So make sure you are not over popping or over removing, so to speak, from one of these queues. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll catch you in the next section where we will go over the solution to this problem.